Good day, all, and welcome to another edition of Local Legislator Live at 11. I am your host, Charles Gates, and it is indeed a pleasure to be here and to be with our special guest this morning. None other than Dr. Mark Downey, running for House of Delegates in the 96th District. Good morning, Dr. Downey. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Good morning to you, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Glad to see you here today. And this episode is sponsored by SSK Edits. And if you'd like to get in touch with SSK Edits, they do video editing, they do art commissions and graphic designs. You can reach Mr. Hodgins at kenny.hodgins@gmail.com. That's HODGINS. Dr. Downey, we're going to start this interview right off out the gate with telling us something about you. What is your education, occupation, and why are you seeking Virginia's 96th district in the House of Delegates?
Well, yeah, thank you. Like I said, Dr. Mark Downey. I've been a lifelong resident of Williamsburg, just outside of Williamsburg in Queens Lake. Moved here when I was 2 years old and currently live on the same property I grew up on, raising my four children with my lovely wife. But just some background about, how I moved through the Williamsburg area. I moved here when I was 2, when my dad retired from the Air Force. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force and retired to Williamsburg. Went to great public schools in York County growing up, went to Waller Middle, Magruder, Queens Lake, and graduated from Bruton High School. Had the honor of being valedictorian and senior class president at Bruton. And from there, I went on to pursue a degree in chemical engineering. My father was a civil engineer. My older brother was a civil engineer. I enjoyed math and science, so I thought that was my path at the time. So I enjoyed my time at the University of Virginia, got my bachelor's of science in chemical engineering, and then worked for actually 4 years as a chemical engineer, a year down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for Exxon Chemical, and then came back to work in Virginia for 3 years before deciding I wanted to do more. Undergraduate, I had the idea that I may want to go into like biomedical engineering or something to do with medicine. But after working as an engineer, I really felt like my interest in working with people and helping people really drove me to go back to become a physician. And that's when I went back to medical school at MCV in Richmond, Medical College of Virginia in Richmond. From there, I graduated valedictorian of a med school class and was senior class president there. So hopefully see a pattern there. I enjoyed my time and worked hard, but also wanted to make sure that all my classmates and friends had a good experience as well. From there, I moved on to residency training up in Rochester, New York. Became double board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics, 4-year program up there. Worked for a year after residency down in Florida, attempting to do everything kind of from pediatrics to geriatrics, but found my true passion was pediatrics. And then in 2001, had the opportunity to come back to my hometown in Williamsburg to work with a pediatrician that I was the head swim coach for his kids growing up. So moved back to Williamsburg in 2001 and joined Pediatric Associates of Williamsburg. And that's where I've been ever since. And I've living my dream job, being a pediatrician for lots of close family friends and their kids and their grandkids, getting to know the community from all aspects. And it's been a pleasure to work with all the families and kids in this area. I really want to do more for them. I see things on a day-to-day basis that make me want to improve things for my families, their families, their grandparents, all that. And that's what's really driven me to get involved, not just as a pediatrician, but involved in improving the lives of everyone. Really wanting to make sure that top priority, everyone should have good healthcare. But I know we'll talk about that later, but that's what really drove me to get involved and get into and running for a House of Delegates in the 96th district.
Okay, well, first of all, a big shout out to your dad, retired Air Force man. I happen to be a former Marine myself, so hoorah to your dad. He'll know what that means exactly. And What a contrast between engineering and pediatrician. Wow, it couldn't be more different sides
Yeah.
of the spectrum.
Yeah, but
Now,
it helps me approach things in a very logical manner, and really look into the details and the data, and it's really helped me as a pediatrician be more effective as well.
that is quite the unique spin on the pediatrician occupation, I would imagine. Now, your full name on the upcoming ballot, is it Mark Downey, or is there a middle name in there?
Well, my middle name is Collins, but I believe for the ballot it's just going to be Mark Downey or Mark C. Downey.
Okay.
That's yeah.
All right. And what party do you affiliate with?
I am a member of the Democratic Party. I've been a member of the York-Poquoson Democratic Committee for the past 15 years, been helping out that committee, been supporting local candidates over the past decade. So that's where I'm leaning right now.
Okay. Now, you mentioned where you lived here in Virginia. You mentioned how long you've been there. And the question is, have you held any other previous offices prior to this?
No, sir. I've been, lifelong resident of this area. Been heavily involved with, different aspects of my community. I've been on the local homeowners association board for a couple times, couple stints. Been involved with the pool committee and swim team committee in my neighborhood. But this would be my first position as elected official. So I'm looking forward to that next challenge in my life.
Challenge it will be indeed, I'm sure. Now, to our viewers out there, if you like this interview, would like to see more like it, be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And most importantly, leave us a comment. Let us know who you want to hear from next. Let us know what we can do better, what we can leave out. And most importantly, share this with others, because we want to bring people on the air to educate you. Now, Dr. Downey, how has your community involvement prepared you for this moment?
Well, I think just getting to know my community from all aspects, from all different, parts of town. I do this here's my engineering coming out. I do this calculation. I see roughly about 300 patients a month. So that's about 3,500 patients a year. I've been doing it for 20 years. So quick math, that's up to 70,000 interactions with families and children and their grandparents, and really getting to know the community. Not all of them are Democrats, they're Republicans, independents, but what is the common denominator is, showing compassion, caring for them, looking out for their best interests. And that's how I've been able to reach out and really get to know the community, earn the trust of patients and families. And I think that is something that we need, not just in pediatrics and the medical profession, but we need it more in the political scene as well. We need people that are willing to talk to anyone that comes up, and in a respectful manner, really listening to them, getting involved with where they are coming from. And you may not always agree, but at least you can be agreeable and enjoy the conversations. And as a physician, there are new things that come up all the time. So we're learning all the time. So, just because things seem, a certain way right now, as we get more information, more data, then I feel like I can use that skill as well as a delegate to make positive changes for the Commonwealth going forward.
Okay, now, before I ask you my next question, I was reading your background and you reminded me of Warren Buffett. Why Warren Buffett? Not because of the billionaire. I know you're not a billionaire.
No.
Your children grew up in the same house as you did.
Right.
That is quite unique. Tell us something about that.
Well, growing up here, I was the youngest of 6. So I got, lots of older brothers and sisters that really kept me involved with the community of Queens Lake. It's kind of back from the 50s. We have Queens Lake Day, where people get together every year to celebrate the neighborhood and celebrate each other. It was a great place to grow up as a kid. We could spend all day at the swimming pool in the summer, but even without that, we could just go down to the field and hang out with our friends. And I've been in a lot of different places during residency training and jobs, but I never, found a place like this anywhere. So when I had the opportunity to move back and join a pediatrician that I was the coach of his kids growing up, I jumped at the opportunity and was fortunate enough to get back in the same house and, seeing my kids enjoy the same things that I did, part of the swim team, part of the same schools I went to, that to me I felt like one of the best things I could give to my children growing up, the same experience I have, and hopefully they'll maybe pass it on to their children, and we'll have 3 generations in this neighborhood. So we'll see.
That is quite the unique story indeed. I know you weren't expecting that question, but I just
No,
had
no.
to ask because you don't hear it too often.
Yeah.
It too often. Now, if elected to the 96th district in the House of Delegates, what are your 4 main goals?
Yes. So I will, I'll highlight the 4, and then I'll give a little detail about what my thoughts are on each one. Obviously, healthcare is one of my top priorities. Get in there and work on improving access to healthcare. Make sure every Virginian has quality healthcare, mental health care, and involved with that. 2 is education, early childhood education, but all the way through to vocational education, increasing opportunities for kids. Kind of the foundation of, what sets them off on a good path. 3rd is economic equality, trying to improve access to affordable housing and childcare and all the things that people are struggling with on a daily basis. What can we do to improve the livable wage, the minimum wage, anything to make lives easier for people? And final is gun safety legislation. As a pediatrician, my heart breaks every time I see a child get access to unintentionally getting involved with a accident with a weapon, and really want to continue to move Virginia forward to be one of the safest places for kids. So going back into a little bit more detail with, in particular, healthcare, I do believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. I think as the wealthiest country in the world, we have a moral obligation. We have a financial and national security obligation to make sure that all of our residents have access to high quality healthcare. It benefits everyone, from individuals to corporations to the country as a whole. So I really want to see Virginia take that next step, and not just expanding Medicaid for those that qualify, but making sure that everyone has access to affordable healthcare, and especially mental health care. When I first started as a pediatrician, probably about 10% of my practice was mental health or behavioral related. Pre-pandemic, it was probably 30%. We're probably close to 40% of what we see now has some tie to mental health and that sort of thing. So working on the infrastructure of getting more people going into the mental health profession, setting systems up where they can be successful to reach as many people as possible, whether it's through telemedicine, whether it's in person. We need to not only have more money going to those programs, but also more resources. So those are kind of 2 big key areas in healthcare that I'd like to work on. As far as education, my wife's a special education teacher, K-5. So as a pediatrician, I know how important it is to get kids off to a good start with education. So starting with 3 and 4-year-olds, I want to see how far we can go. If we can, my ideal would be have universal pre-K for all 3 and 4-year-olds in Virginia. That would benefit urban communities, suburban communities, rural communities, to make sure that every kid has a good start when they walk through the first day at kindergarten. But also making sure our teachers have the resources they need, the pay that they deserve, the schools have the funding for the infrastructure that they need. Really also start encouraging folks that maybe college isn't the ideal place for them right away, but getting back to more of the vocational education training, more trade skills, matching them with businesses in their community, being more targeted to make sure that they can be successful and have a good paying job when they finish high school. As far as economic justice and equitable, working on improving the minimum wage, a livable wage, providing better affordable housing for folks, better access to childcare. all these things are interconnected and it provide a good foundation for people to be successful. And then, the final piece again was gun safety legislation. We've made some improvements in the last couple of years, but there's still room to make sure that, our Commonwealth is safe and that people have the right to own their guns, but do it in a safe and effective, meaningful care and responsibility having that weapon. So those are my four big ideas heading forward. I'm sure there'll be more that come up, but those are my ones I'm really passionate about.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And for the benefit of our listeners and our viewers out there, for those who don't know, the House of Delegate consists of 14 different committees, which range everywhere from health and education to cybersecurity to general rules. Now, this is a question that I didn't tell you I was going to ask, but I only have one more, so I want to fit this in there because many people don't know what the House of Delegates does. They know about the Senate, they know about the City Council, School Board. Could you explain very briefly what is the House of Delegates and what are their responsibilities?
So the Virginia government is pretty much modeled after the federal government. You have the executive branch, which is the governor, the lieutenant governor, attorney general, and then you have the legislative body, which incorporates the state Senate and the state House of Delegates. And similar to the national level, there's only 40 state senators that represent different areas of the state. And then the House of Delegates, there's 100 House delegates that represent smaller areas to be more in tune with their local community and listening to their constituents. So, the main job of House of Delegates and the Senate is to come up with legislation, proposed legislation, involved with regulating businesses in the Commonwealth. It's really, I think, more important, who your delegate is than your congressional representative, because a lot of things that the House of Delegates can directly impact your day-to-day life much more significantly and more immediate than at the federal level. So, from everything from, funding for schools, funding for local police departments, and all those things that we value in our government, that's what the House of Delegates really focuses on.
Well, thank you so much for that education. And just to let, again, for our viewers out there who are not too familiar with the House of Delegates and how it works and the complexities involved in it, typically in the state of Virginia, over the past few years, up to 39% of the delegate seats have gone unopposed. That is a red flag for us as constituents of the state of Virginia to get more involved in our local governments. It is so important that we understand how this affects us because we're all affected by the decisions that the House of Delegates make, that the Senate makes, how the City Council makes, how the school board makes. It affects us all, so get involved. Dr. Mark Downey, we want to thank you so much for being here. And I was remiss earlier, I didn't mention the fact that we are a component of locallegislator.net, where our desire is to create a better informed electorate by making local government and business simple, taking out the complexities and giving it to you in layman's terms. Now, Dr. Downing, how can we get in touch with you and find out more information about your campaign?
Yes, sir. So our website is downeyforvirginia.com. It's all spelled out, DOWNEY for Virginia.com. Obviously, we have a Facebook page. We have ways to sign up to receive our newsletter. We do weekly newsletters to keep people informed of what's happening at the local and state level. Active on Instagram and Twitter. So lots of ways to keep up with our campaign. I have two support staff right now, Rebecca Lesser and Anna Sargent, that are managing the campaign right now. So they can be reached through the campaign website. Encourage folks to go to my website to look through all the different ideas I have on different parts of legislation that we didn't cover today. And again, like Charles said, get involved. If you want to see things happen, it starts at the local level, and it starts with the House of Delegates and your local officials as well.
Well, thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Godspeed to you. Best of luck in you and your campaign, and best of luck to your family too in that same household.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah. Take care, sir. And to our audience out there, we will see you next week, bright and early on Wednesday morning, where we come live to you on Local Legislator Live at 11. Take care of yourself, and until next week, be good and be informed. Take care.
Thank you.